Hello and welcome to the Confidence Academy podcast. My name is Lily Badcock and I am a transformational confidence coach and founder of the Confidence Academy Members Club, helping men and women just like you to build unshakable confidence and self-belief. Each week, I will be bringing you new episodes with advice and guidance to help you rebuild lost confidence, manage anxiety, and finally start living the life you were born to live. It is my aim to reach as many people as possible with the message that no matter what you're going through, no matter what your struggle may be, there is hope. And there is a way to create an amazing life for yourself. The incredible people I have been blessed to interview on the show are walking, talking examples of how this is possible. And I truly hope you will find their stories uplifting, inspiring, and motivational. The conversations are very open and candid and occasionally may include some adult language, so please take care when listening around little ones or grab some headphones. This podcast series is brought to you in association with Lily Badcock Confidence Coaching and the Confidence Academy Members Club. If you are ready to make the shift from anxious and frustrated to calm and confident, then visit www.lilybadcock.com today and get started with the free resources that are waiting there for you. I need you to know that you're not alone, that it can and will get easier, and that the transformation you seek is possible. You are more powerful than you know, and I'm here to teach you everything I know about harnessing that power and creating an amazing life on your terms. Before we dive in, don't forget to leave a review for us on iTunes and to check out the links in the podcast notes to the free resources we have available for you. But for now, let's get you on your way to living your epic life, free of anxiety and full of confidence. After all, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it. Hello, welcome to the Confidence Academy podcast. My name is Lily Badcock, and oh my God, you guys, you'll never guess who's in the house today. It's Caroline Cavanagh, anxiety specialist, otherwise known as my very good friend and the person who helped me overcome my anxiety in the first place, without whom this podcast would not even exist. So Caroline, welcome to the podcast.
Well, bless you. Don't put me up on that pedestal. It's a hell of a long way to fall, girl.
I can't hear what you're saying. You're so high up on there. This has been long overdue. And
it has.
I think everyone that listens to this podcast already knows who you are, because in fact, they probably think that you're some kind of imaginary friend that I made up, because I talk about you a lot. And I'm really excited that you're finally on here and you guys can hear that she's a real person.
No, this is just you actually learning to throw your voice. It's really clever.
Imagine if I could actually do that. There would be a lot of fun to be had if that was really something I could do. Welcome to the podcast, and to everyone listening, this could go anywhere really, but we're going to try and keep it on track to talk about the fact that Caroline is an anxiety specialist, and she actually has a number of methods and modalities that she uses to help her clients, which I'm not going to go into. I'm going to let Caroline talk you through that in just a second. And we are going to be kind of harping back to the book that she wrote called Anxiety Alchemy. Was that 2 years ago now? Or was it 3?
No, 2 years ago, yeah. So it was May 2016 it came out.
That's right, yeah. Because on my time hop the other day, our little event came up. So Caroline and I did an event called Choose Confidence, which was 2 years ago. And that post came up literally like the other week. Yep. I was like, oh my goodness, that's 2 whole years ago. This book is incredible because it's literally... it's just the process that you yourself have used, and not just for yourself, but for the countless people that you've worked with.
Yeah.
And what I loved about it, because I have a copy and it's signed, you guys. You can't see my smug face, but hopefully you can hear the smugness in my voice that I got a signed copy. No. But it's so relatable and it's so easy to follow. And I think it really... which is what you need, because when you're suffering from anxiety, the first thing you're going to do is say, oh, I'm too overwhelmed to go through that process, or I'm too overwhelmed to pick up that book. Yeah. And what this book does really, really well is it just really simplifies everything, and it has your voice running all the way through it, in a way that I know when I came to see you, the thing I loved the most was you very lovingly had a way of going, oh, that's an interesting perspective, Lily, but how about if you looked at it this way? And it was just a very gentle nudge to go, perhaps you don't know everything, which I don't like to be told, and yet you somehow managed to tell me. And the book does the same thing. It's a very gentle nudge to just suggest that you maybe open your mind to the possibility that there might be another way to see the situation, and therefore another way to combat it. So before we go launching into that, do you want to properly introduce yourself, tell people who you are, what you do, why you do it as well, why you're so passionate about it, and tell us a little bit about your book as well?
Oh God, how long have you got?
5 hours, go.
So, yeah, I think we'll almost go it the other way around. I've always been passionate about understanding why do people do what they do, what makes people tick, and that's kind of in a sort of convoluted way is why I got into being a therapist. And my I guess academic background is in hypnotherapy, so I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, but that normally makes people run a mile. But really all hypnotherapy is it teaches you about how your subconscious mind works. So it's not about that frontal bit of the mind where we can rationalize, because we all know, let's take something that I guess most people can relate to. We all know that if you eat 5 donuts, it's not good for you. But you might have had a rubbish day and you can sit there with these donuts in front of you going, that's not good for me. But that bit at the back of your mind is going, I want them and I'm going to eat them. And then before you know it, that packet's empty and you go, oh, bugger, why did that happen? And then you go, oh, really bad person. It's a flagellation thing. And so it's, if you just talk about stuff, it's just that front of the mind bit that you're engaging with that's going, oh, no, I mustn't eat them. But you've got to get to that bit at the back of the mind that's going, but I want them. And that's the subconscious. And the only way that I have found that allows you to communicate with that bit is through hypnotherapy. So let's just get this kind of big elephant in the room. Hypnotherapy isn't about clucking chickens, stage shows, and all that rubbish that goes on.
Uh-oh, she's off.
Yeah. Doubt yet.
She's banging her hands on the table.
Singing on my box. It is purely, hypnotherapy goes back over 3,000 years. It's one of these ancient practices that, it's been around because it bloody works. It's about understanding what's really at the root of the problem, because that subconscious part of your mind is all about survival. Your primary role of that subconscious mind is to keep you alive. And so the whole time you've got like this whacking great radar searching going, is there risk? Is there risk? And if it goes yes, it sets off all these internal chemical reactions that we now label anxiety, worry, whatever flipping word you want to use. It's coming from a subconscious motivation of fear because a part of you has perceived that there is risk to your survival. And that may be something like, oh, the plane might crash if I go up in an aeroplane. It hasn't flipping happened yet, but even the thought is triggering that subconscious motivation of I've got to survive. So it comes up with a solution. Don't get in the aeroplane. That works. Brilliant. So you don't get in the aeroplane. The brain goes, yeah, okay, I'm still alive. So let's do that again next time. And what most people will find with anxiety is whatever was initially a small anxiety grows and it gets stronger and it gets bigger and then it attaches itself to other things. Because this subconscious part of your mind doesn't have a filter. It doesn't rationalize. It's just going, I'm surviving. Therefore, what I'm doing is working. Let's do more of it. And so that's kind of where I've come from. It's understanding how the subconscious works so that you can then use that knowledge to make it work in a better way.
Yeah.
And then that kind of led me on to, working with clients. And whilst I absolutely adore working with clients face to face and seeing the changes that they can make, because quite often you can make changes really, really quickly. I mean, yourself, we're talking about 2-3 sessions, hours, as opposed to years.
It was one. I mean, I think the important shift happened in the first session, and I didn't even go under in the first session.
It was literally just having the space to speak and to get everything that was in my head, like running around, out in a neutral environment where it felt safe to do so. And then, because and people would argue, oh, but you could do that with a friend. You can, but a friend won't always tell you what you need to hear. They will often tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah,
and there's space for that too. Sometimes that is all you need. And sometimes when you're not quite ready for the up level yet, and you're not quite ready for the next step, by all means, go and find those yes people who are going to feed you and go, oh yeah, no, that's fine. But when you get to the point that I got to, where it's like, no, actually, no, I want to change. Like, not change, but I want to feel different about this situation. Then you go to someone like Caroline, who will hold you with as much love and respect as a friend would, but will give you, as I said, these alternative ways to look at things. It was almost like a mirror being held up. Because I remember I came in with I was the queen of blaming everything around me for every circumstance. So I was sat there going, oh, and so-and-so does this, and that's what makes me do that. And you were like, oh, they make you do it. Well, that's an interesting phrase you've used. And I was like, okay. And then, and then it was like, oh, and then this happens, and then it makes me feel like that. And you were like, oh, there's that word again, make. And it was just like you were holding up a mirror going, oh, but look at that. And what if it wasn't that? What if it didn't have the power to do that? Well, then where would you be?
And that's a really, really valid thing that you've picked up on. Is what I can do, through the training that I have, is really hear the words that you're saying, because that's your subconscious talking. Because something like "make me" is very disempowering. Yeah, it's like something is making me feel that way. And when I hear, there's all sorts of phrases and words that when I hear, it's kind of, okay, that tells me something about how your subconscious is working. And then that's where my training comes in, to reflect that back on you and say, actually, no one makes you do anything. Yeah. And make me is a really, really biggie one of mine, because it's true. And a lot of people will find this quite hard to swallow initially. But no one can make you do anything. And the best metaphor I can give for that is, if you sat 40 people in a room and told the same joke, you would get 40 different reactions. Some people might crack a rib. Some people might chortle. Some people might be offended by it. Some people might not be amused at all. So no one is making you do something. All of their reactions are based on their lifelong experiences that, again, have been filed away in their subconscious mind. So if you want to get a different reaction, it's at the subconscious level that you've got to be working. Yeah, I love that. I want to just go on to the subject of affirmations, because I've been on my journey now for 5 years, I would say. And it's increasing. Every year I do more and more and more and more. And so I become more aware of the things that are kind of floating around now in the world that are here to help people that have issues with anxiety or stress, whatever it may be. And affirmations is something that's come up in almost everything I've read and everything I've kind of done, programs and all sorts. And I love affirmations, but I've seen them work and I've seen them not work. Yeah. And so can you explain, I know why I think they work and why they don't work, but can you explain from your clinical background why it's not enough just to go writing happy phrases on a sticky note and then sit back and wait for life to change? Why is that not working for people? Okay. The reason they can work is because anything that you practice, eventually your conscious mind, so this bit that's sort of above our eyelids, the big bulbous bit at the front of our head, will go, okay, got it now. And it chucks it into the back of the mind. So the most easy example most people can relate to that is learning to ride a bike. Right. You weren't born learning to ride a bike. You practiced it, you got it. And then eventually you now got to a point where you jump on a bike and you don't even think about how to ride and you can do it. And so that happens with everything: walking, cycling, driving a car. And so anything with repetition eventually is no longer consciously done, it's subconsciously done. So if you repeat something often enough, like I am clever, eventually there is every possibility that your conscious mind goes, yep, got it now. and it passes it back into the subconscious mind, which then becomes a reference, and you believe you're clever. So that's why it can work. However, the reason it often doesn't work is if there is already a file in the subconscious mind that goes, you're not clever, you're stupid. It doesn't matter how many times you repeat that, I'm clever. There's a much, much bigger beast in the back going, it ain't coming in. And that's when, again, you have to go back to talking to that part of the brain that's holding on to that other belief that I'm stupid. So let's relate this to anxiety. If you've got a part, if you keep saying to yourself, I can do this, I can do this. If there's a part in that subconscious mind going, you're not doing this because you're putting yourself at risk, you can repeat that until you are absolutely blue in the face. It's not going to work. Yeah. So my solution to that problem, if you take the word affirmation, AFF, but then change the I to O, affirmation, and it's now about asking yourself a question. So rather than saying, I can do this, you turn it into a question. How can I do this? Why can I do this? What can I do to achieve this? Because again, the subconscious mind loves answering questions.
Right.
And it then comes up with the answers. How can I do this? Well, I could go and copy someone who already knows how to do it. I could get some training. And straight away, your brain has shifted because it's no longer trying to force a square peg into a round hole. It's taken a complete different approach. And it's looking at this file and going, okay, well, I've got a problem with doing that. So what's the solution? And again, the subconscious reacts to that and joins forces with the conscious, which is brilliant because you've got both parts of your mind then working in harmony with you. And so as soon as you start asking that question, and that's quite often people who regularly meditate will meditate on a question. So they're not meditating, repeating something. They go into meditation, they go into that relaxed state and saying, why am I feeling like this? And they will always say, you know, all these answers start to come to me. I don't know where they're coming from. Well, I'll tell them where they're coming from. It's coming from their subconscious. Because the answer's already in there. So turning, you know, a statement, an affirmation into a question, an affirmation, you form something, can often be the way that you get round these whacking great hurdles that are stopping that affirmation getting passed into the subconscious.
And that's just one example of something that's so easy to do. You could do that right now. If you're listening to this podcast right now thinking, oh, I'm having a wobbly day and I feel anxious, then you can start right now and start asking yourself these questions. And just start questioning what you believe is your reality and what you believe are your limitations. Because when you start questioning them, you realize that actually they're not your limitations at all. It's literally just a program that's been running in your mind. And at any point, I mean, it really is as simple as going, I choose not to run that program anymore.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, and sometimes it's enough, just realizing that that's available to you. Sometimes that's enough just to break you out of that habit. But then for the deeper rooted issues, the work that Caroline does, so like the book that we've mentioned, which we'll talk about in a second, a book like that would help you, or a session with Caroline would really help you, just to get to the bottom if it's a deeper thing. So a really good example of this was, I initially went to Caroline because I had anxiety. When I realized how amazing this technique was, I left after the first session, and I remember saying to you, I'm writing a list of stuff you can help me with, and I'm coming back because like there's a bunch of stuff I literally felt like I'd walked into the restaurant of life and been handed a menu, and it was just like, now you get to have whatever you want. What do you want? So I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I started like listing like what are the other areas of my life I'd like to work on. And one of the things I came back to you for was my fear of roller coasters. So this is a really good example of what you think is the issue may not be the issue at all. So we were going on our family holiday to Florida, and I know this isn't like a life-changing thing, like, you know, plenty of people go through life not riding a roller coaster. But for me, it was something that every time I went to a theme park, I would go through this kind of rite of passage where I would watch the rides, decide that I wanted in on the fun, I'd queue up, then I'd have a panic attack, and then everyone around me would have a horrible time because now I'm having a panic attack and I can't get on the ride, and then I'd have to get off the other side, and then I'd feel embarrassed. Then I would beat myself up for days, weeks, months afterwards, going, oh my God, you're such a wuss, and you ruined the day, and yada, yada, yada. So we were going to Florida, and I thought, I didn't even want to do the big rides. I just wanted to be able to get on even the little rides with my kids, because the thing is, my fear of roller coasters was not in any way to do with how big the ride was. It was literally to queue up and get on anything that moves would give me this reaction, whether it was a horrendous roller coaster or a little merry-go-round. So I wandered in fully expecting to go, oh, okay, my fear is of roller coasters. Do your magic, Caroline, and then I will leave and I will get straight on a roller coaster and it will be fine. And what came out of that session was actually the memory that when I was 7, I was going to ballet classes and not enjoying them. And I didn't know that I could say to my parents, I'm not enjoying this anymore. And I continued to go for ages and ages and ages because I didn't want to let my parents down and I didn't want to upset them because I felt like it was something they really wanted me to do. Mm-hmm. So what came out of that session actually was not a fear of roller coasters at all, but this need to please people. And I linked it back to the first time I ever went on what I would call a proper ride. I was 15, I was at school. I had the normal level of anxiety about getting on a ride, as anyone would when you haven't done it before. And the people that were with me went, oh God, you have to get on it because we're all going together. And if you don't, like, you're going to be the only one and it's going to ruin the day and blah, blah, blah. And I took that belief on in that moment and I attached it to roller coasters. So actually my fear of roller coasters was not a fear of heights or speed or anything like that. It was this need to please people, and if I don't get on this ride, then somehow I'm responsible for the enjoyment of the whole day or the whole holiday. And it was bizarre because when I came out of the hypnosis that time and you said to me, how do you feel about roller coasters? I was like, I don't want to ride them, but that's okay. So it wasn't the outcome I expected at all. And as it goes, I did go on the family holiday and I did get on the rides with my children. I chose to leave the monstrous, massive rides because now I look at them and I'm like, oh, I don't have to do that. Awesome. I don't have to do that and I don't have to feel bad. So it's really interesting. What you think is your problem is not always your problem. Or what you think you're dealing with isn't always what you're dealing with. So one thing I've written down, I've been frantically writing notes on my pad because I really feel like I could do this interview for hours and hours and hours. I'm sure I'm going to get you back on because I actually think there's a load of specific topics we could probably do episodes around that would really help people. So actually, if you're listening and if you have something specific that you would like us to do an episode on relating to what we've been talking about today, then get in touch. So, this work works for all kinds of things, and you've helped people with like financial issues, like financial stress. You've worked with people that have weight loss issues. You've even helped women who seemingly couldn't conceive children and had tried, they'd been tested for all the normal things and been told there was nothing holding them back. And then they came to you seemingly because they didn't know what else to try. And you have had a very high success rate where you've attached some belief they had in the back of their mind about what it would mean to have children, and when you've reframed that, they've then fallen pregnant within however long it was. Very quick. So I do feel like we could go in any direction with this. So anyone listening, if you have suggestions for future episodes, specifically with Caroline, get in touch and let me know. But I want to talk about this concept of limiting beliefs, because I think it ties in very much with the work that you do, because these are the beliefs I'm talking about that reside in the subconscious. But my own experience, again, with this was when I learned that limiting beliefs were a thing, I then created a belief that I had limiting beliefs. And so that in itself was holding me back. So for people that are listening who maybe have sort of dipped a toe in the self-development world and they've come across this term of limiting beliefs, whether it be around weight loss, money, health, wealth, whatever, what's your take on limiting beliefs, and what's the most useful way to deal with them once we realise that that's what we're dealing with? Because actually I think everyone has a limiting belief or two knocking around in there somewhere. What would your advice be around that?
Yeah, a couple of points on this, and this is a little bit of where I'd call it tough love.
Mm-hmm.
Limiting beliefs. There are no such thing as limiting beliefs. You create your own reality.
Right.
So if you want to create a limiting belief, fill your boots. If you want to stop your car, put the brakes on, it stops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to move the car forward, take your foot off the brake. It's all about you taking control. And the real bit of tough love is, I would actually rephrase limiting belief as excuse.
Mm.
Yeah?
Bam,
I
there
say
you are.
that genuinely with love. This is
Yeah.
not going, you're rubbish. It is an excuse that your subconscious mind has set up to protect you from something it perceives as dangerous.
So true. It's so true.
So,
And what compounds that as well, unfortunately, I've seen, this is my take on it, is there are now a bunch of people who are cashing in on the fact that if they tell someone they have a limiting belief, then they can sell an entire course around how to overcome that limiting belief.
mm-hmm.
Whereas what you've just said just buries that instantly. And I love, and it's so true. And I'm the queen of, I wore my limiting belief t-shirt with pride. I don't actually have a t-shirt, but and maybe it was what I needed at the time. Maybe I'd done enough development at that time and I needed a bit of a break. And so I created this idea that, you have these limitations, so you need to stay where you're at. It's only because I'm a feisty one and I'm not one to sort of just stick in any place really, that eventually I went, well, actually, no, this sucks too,
Let's take a sort of very broad example. A very common limiting belief is, someone feels they're not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
They might not be a good enough mother, parent, whatever it is, but it's something about, I'm not good enough. And typically what is feeding that is a fear of success.
Mm.
Because, and that might make people go, how can you be worried about success? But it's very real, because success often means you might lose friends. You might lose your partner, because you change as a person. Suddenly, you've got a bigger car, nicer house, bigger holidays, whatever it means. That is a genuine fear, but often one you're not consciously aware of.
Yeah.
And so you set this limiting belief because that keeps you in your comfort zone. And a comfort zone is a bit of a misnomer. A comfort zone really doesn't have to be comfortable. What it really means is you understand how it works.
Mm.
You understand how to do what you do. What you don't understand is how to do something different. Mm. So you set up this limiting belief that keeps you in your comfort zone, because that's easy.
Mm.
Because going outside of the comfort zone and doing something you don't know yet how to do, that's scary.
Yeah.
And so that's the part of your brain that, again, the subconscious goes, scary. That's risk, unknown territory, stay away.
Yeah.
And so we attach this thing called a limiting belief. I'm not good enough to do that.
Right.
It keeps you where you're safe.
So how would you recommend somebody deal with that? If they are, if everything you're saying is resonating with somebody listening and they're going, oh, I have limiting beliefs, or I thought I did, and now you've just told me that actually I don't have to have those, then how does somebody even make a start at dealing with that? How do you reframe that fear, and how do you let yourself know that you're safe to go for that big dream or that big change that maybe you're aiming for?
Okay. Brilliant question. And if we go back to one of those first points that I made, is there is no such thing as a reality apart from the reality that you give it.
Mm-hmm.
So if, for example, let's just take a context of I'm not a good enough parent. Common one that I see with a lot of mums is then look and say, oh, okay, who can you learn from? Who is already doing what you feel you can't do? Because if someone's already doing that, it makes it possible.
Yeah.
So you can then say, well, if it's possible for someone else, it's possible for you.
Yeah.
How do you then make it possible?
Yeah.
Again, do you need to learn something? Do you need to read a book? Do you need to go and talk to that person, which is probably the easiest thing, and say, look, I've really noticed you're brilliant at this. How do you do it? And it suddenly, again, makes it achievable. It's no longer scary because it's already been done. And again, one of the metaphors I use for this is for, a long, long time, it was genuinely accepted that no one could run a mile in less than 4 minutes. Roger Bannister didn't buy into that. He believed it was possible. And as soon as he'd done it, people were breaking the 4-minute miles regularly because suddenly it was possible. So it broke that limiting belief.
Right, yeah.
And so as soon as it becomes possible, your energy and energy changes. As soon as you've got that belief it's possible, your energy changes and new solutions start to come. So that is always my best bit of advice is once you recognize you've got a limiting belief, you start looking around to see, can someone do it? So let's look at it from a completely different angle. I might have a limiting belief that I can't fly.
Yeah.
I can't fly, I don't have wings. So I'd look around and go, actually, no one can fly. There's no one I can learn from. It's not possible.
Yeah.
But the day one person flaps their arms and lifts off the ground, I'm going to go, oh, it's possible. How am I going to learn to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, again, working out what is your reality? What ceiling are you putting on yourself? Because it's only you that's doing it.
Yeah.
Break through that ceiling by looking at who else has already broken through it and learn from them, copy. Yeah,
that was one of the quotes of yours.
It's such a relatively easy thing to do. And that's why I get so frustrated about all these limiting beliefs. They're bollocks.
Yeah.
It is. It's only a limiting belief if no one in the world has ever done it.
Yeah.
But I still don't believe that's limitation. If they're one person, again, you go back through history.
Yeah.
People used to think if you sailed to the horizon, you'd fall off the end of the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Magellan went, oh, let's have a look.
Yeah.
And now we're all sailing around the world and don't think twice of it. It used to believe you couldn't put a man on the moon.
Yeah.
We put a man on the moon and now it's common acceptance. And you just apply that own theory to whatever is your own limiting belief, because you're the only one that's got that. There's probably millions of people out there who don't. Therefore, it's not real.
Yeah, I love that. And this is a really personal question now for my own benefit, but it's my podcast, so I should definitely cash in on the fact that I get to interview these amazing people. So I'm at a point right now where I'm looking to up level again. And I think this is something that we're constantly doing. We're constantly evolving, even if we don't realize that we are. And as I said, I've been on this long journey of self-development, and I've been creating my business and tweaking it and changing it. And it's at this point now where I'm really excited about everything I'm doing. And so next year, I'm looking to move into live events like retreats. Mm-hmm. And the thing that keeps coming up for me is that I'm not a particularly organized person in the kind of normal sense of the word. So whenever I think about doing something like that, I straight away worry that people wouldn't have a good experience and that I won't be able to take that on. But at the same time, I know that that the retreat itself would be amazing, and I know I would love to do it. So how do you tell the difference between, because clearly that's a limiting belief. Clearly, yeah. I could decide to be organized, yeah. and I could map it out and I could do it. But when I think of that, I think I could do that, but then maybe that isn't me, so maybe then I should call in the help to do it. So when should you back down a path and try and maybe fundamentally change the makeup of who you are? And when should you just say, do you know what, I'm going to stick in my zone of genius, because I know my zone of genius is the teaching and the coaching, and then I will build a team of people to do the rest. Do you think there's a rule around that, or do you literally think it is just a choice and people should do what they feel is the right thing for them?
Absolutely the latter. It's a choice. We are all individuals, and it's something that I talk to pretty much every single one of my clients at some point. Is the only person who has responsibility for your own happiness is you. If your perception of not being organized is winding you up, then deal with it. Learn how to be organized.
Yeah.
But I would throw that back at you and say, okay, you've got a belief that you're not an organised person, but I bet you get the boys to school on time every morning, and they're fed, and they've got the right clothes on.
Yeah.
So you have managed to do probably 40 different things to know is their school uniform clean. If not, you've got it washed and pressed and ironed, ready for them to get ready in the morning, and you've got the shopping in to know that they've got the Weetabix that they like. If you actually crack through it, you've probably done 40 things. You're organised.
Yeah.
You're just organised in one part of your world, but you're believing that actually to do an event takes a different quality of organisation.
Yeah.
Why? What's that belief there for? So that would be one of the first things I'd look at. And if you decided that actually, at the end of the day, I probably am organised, but I don't want to do all that admin around an event, great,
right.
Outsource it.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was getting to. Yeah.
So I think it really is identifying, do you genuinely have a skill deficit? Yes or no? Because often the answer is no. You're just deciding you're going to apply the deficit to a certain area of your life.
Yeah.
But if there is a genuine skill deficit, then make a decision. Do you want to learn that skill, or do you want to get someone in that's already got it? So I know, for example, I cannot plumb a house. But if I've got a leaky toilet, I can't be asked to learn how to fix it. I get a plumber in.
Yeah.
I don't need to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's other things where I think actually having that skill would really help me. Perhaps it would help me be more efficient, more effective, save more money, save more time.
Yeah.
Or it just genuinely interests me.
Yeah.
In which case, go learn how to do it. So yeah, long way of saying it's a choice.
Yeah.
There isn't a right and wrong answer. It's a right and wrong answer for you.
Yeah. And that's a prime example of how fear can show up.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't know better, that fear would stop me going ahead and doing it. As it happens, I'm not stopping, I'm doing it. I've already put a post out to see who'd be interested, and it's happening, it's going to happen. So my next question is, will you come and be part of it? Because that would be next level and awesome. It's so interesting though how your fear can show up, and it shows up like a trusty friend, doesn't it? It's like, oh, come on, you know, you're not very good at that. Maybe you shouldn't do it. And you have to kind of whip the cloak off and go, actually, you're not my friend, and what you're saying isn't true. And what you've just said is absolutely bang on. I don't actually, what I've learned, and only very recently, is that I am beautiful as I am. And if I am chaotic, awesome. That's my energy and I own it. And if there's an area of my business where chaotic energy isn't going to work, I know plenty of people who, like my sister for one, who brings a totally different energy and can balance that out. When you realise,
that scenario has really brought together a lot of what we're talking about. So you're talking about doing live events, which is outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So that is, you know, your subconscious mind is going, there's risk because, you know, you're probably going to have to invest money in setting this up. There's risk attached to that money. You're going to invest a lot of time. There's risk attached to that. So again, your radar is going, warning sign. What do we need to do? And so again, the solution may be, what can I do to prevent this risk is not run the events. That would keep you safe.
Yeah.
And so it comes up with, okay, so let's not run the event. So what can I do to help her decide not to run the event? I know, let's tell myself that, you know, I'm crap at organizing things. I'm a rubbish organizer. And so you procrastinate and you might say, oh, well, I'll see if I can find someone else, which delays the decision for another couple of months. Oh, I didn't find anyone, delays it another couple of months. Or I'll go and learn some organization skills and do a course that might take me 6 months, all the time.
Yeah.
Your brain's going, we're not doing the event. We're keeping safe. Brilliant. Keep going.
Yeah. I have to say, actually, my plan was to do the events in 2018 and then I got myself pregnant. I mean, that's next level procrastination, isn't it?
That's it works.
I thought, I'm going to have a whole human. That will give me another year to figure this out.
And it is amazing. Joking aside, this is something that's, you know, a real serious area of my business and what I do is the lengths that the subconscious will actually go to protect you. Yeah. Including life-threatening illness. Yeah, because all of that anxiety, you know, anyone listening to this is probably someone that is very, very familiar with anxiety. You're aware of that feeling in your body, the tummy feelings, the clenchness, the sweaty palms, the heart racing. It's all a response to chemical reactions that are going on in your body all the time. And that is taking your body out of a natural state. And if those chemicals are allowed to run around in your body over a course of time, they will cause damage. Your body cannot perpetuate being in a state of anxiety all the time. It will start to break down.
Right.
And again, a lot of people will be aware if you have a lot of anxiety, you tend to start getting gastric problems. Because one of the effects of these chemicals, which you may be aware of, it's the fight or flight response. That's where the core comes back to, the very primitive. If there's a risk, your body goes into fight or flight. And part of that chemical reaction is it diverts blood away from your vital organs, away from your sort of your tummy, to your extremities, to your muscles, so that you can either fight whatever's in front of you or run away from it.
Right.
It was great when we were running around in caves and we had to fight tigers, because once the tiger had gone, then your body went back to a state of homeostasis. Yeah. But if you're anxious about something that isn't in front of you, like getting redundant or your boyfriend cheating on you, there isn't an end to that. And so your body stays in this permanently anxious state. So your tummy is constantly being restricted from the blood flow that it needs. Right. And for anything, it then starts to break down. And so that's, medically recognized now. But I have seen it in so many times how these negative emotions, and anger is another big one as well, will actually start to cause the body to break down in such a way that it can also become a way to actually stop that feeling by ending your life, by something as drastic as tumors. And I don't want to get too morbid about all of this, but that is, I guess my hard line is, unless you deal with your anxiety, ultimately your body will start to break down. And because it's not a conscious breaking down, it's a subconscious one. Your subconscious comes up with some really crappy ways of dealing with those problems at times, which may be a cancerous tumor. It may be diabetes. It may be a heart attack.
Yeah.
So deal with the anxiety so your chemistry returns to a natural state where your body is happy.
Yeah.
Feelings are the language of the body. So if you're having negative feelings, it's your body saying to you, I am not doing well.
Right.
Help it.
So off the back of that then, what would your advice be? What can we be doing maybe as a daily practice to start readdressing some of that balance and to start letting some of this anxiety go? Do you have a process that people could follow, or any advice as to how they even get started?
Yeah, I guess this is really what was the motivation behind Anxiety Alchemy. What I sat down when I decided to write that book, I basically put all of the techniques and all of the tips that I teach people on a post-it note, and then put them into an order and wrote the book. It was as simple as that. There isn't a straight, you go from A to B to C to D, and when you get to E, you're fine again. Everyone is different, and everyone needs to go through that process in a slightly different way. So what I've done in the book is to give you a whole series of things that you can do, you can look at, that will help. It's like if you want to get from one side of the bank to the other, you probably can't do that in one jump, but you can do it in a series of stepping stones. And sometimes you might be able to jump 4 stepping stones in a row. Others you might need to tread on all separate 4 to get there. So it's very much a personalized approach. So there isn't one, right, do this and you'll feel better, but it's try this, have a go at that, do that. And each of them will create a tiny little shift, but each tiny little shift is moving you away from where you are and moving you forward. And the more little steps you go forward, the further away you are from where you started. So my first tip to anyone would be, if you are struggling with anxiety, is just find one thing that you want to be able to do. So rather than going, oh, I'm anxious about everything, say, right, well, one of the things that I'm anxious about is, let's just say I've got a fear of birds. So work on that, work on your anxiety, your phobia of birds, and find out what works for you. And when you're more confident about being outside and being in an environment where there's birds, you can then go, okay, what's the next thing that I can work on? What else am I anxious about? So again, in any way, if you want to be a cordon bleu chef, you're probably going to learn how to need to make an omelette first.
Yeah.
And then you move from omelettes onto something else. You don't just go straight in and do a cordon bleu cookery course, because it's way, way beyond where you started. So take that first little step first. So anxiety is very much designed to be, Anxiety or Alchemy is a book that's designed to be something that you dip in and out of.
Yeah.
And the first part of it is all about, okay, what are you going to start working on? What's the one thing? So for you, Lily, you might pick up the book and go, okay, I'm frightened about running these events. Mm-hmm. But I'll just work on, and you narrow it down. I'm working on, okay, my fear actually is all around the risk attached to if it fails. What if I, what if I run this event and I've only got 2 people in the room?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go down, and it then takes you through a number of steps to help you understand, well, what is that fear behind? What evidence have you got that that's going to be real? What can you do to now help yourself? So I don't know how many different tips are in the book. I probably should work out one time, but 30 or more. You might only pick numbers 1, 6, 14, 22, and 29, and that's fine. That works for you. Someone else might have a complete different set. Some people might just pick on one, and it creates such a fundamental shift, they never read the rest of the book. That's fine.
Yeah.
But then they pick it up again 6 months later and go, I now realise I'm having a problem with this, and they'll pick up on completely different things. So it is very much, it's not a book that you pick up and you read from the first page to the last page.
Yeah.
It is something you just dip into and out of, and you carry it around, and then you go back to something and say, okay, I've now got that. I'm in the middle of the river. I'm ready to take the next half of the river.
Yeah.
But you might have been standing in the middle of the river for 6 months, and that's fine. Yeah. Because you're still halfway across it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you've said a load of stuff, actually, that I could pick up on. And like I say, I mean, I think this interview could go and go and go. One thing, though, that I want to say, one thing I've uncovered personally, which I think will help people to hear, and again, it's going to be a little bit from the tough love camp, because I realised that actually I felt comfortable with my anxiety, in as much as the fear of achieving whatever goals it was I was setting, and I'm guessing it's the same thing now with these retreats, is that I don't know who I am if I'm not panicking about this. because I so identify as someone now that is anxious, or that gets anxious about things, that I don't know who I am without that worry. And something that came out in journaling, actually, that's come out a lot, and you touched on it earlier, there's the fear of, is my reality going to change as I know it? Are the people that I have in my circle currently going to change? Am I going to lose people that matter to me? One fear I had around even starting the Confidence Academy was that if I overcame my own anxiety, and if I kind of got to that level, that I wouldn't be able to have empathy for other people, and therefore wouldn't be able to help them. So it's this thing of, I don't know who I am, and I guess it comes back from that place of wanting to be safe, doesn't it? It's like, well, I don't like where I am right now, but it still might be better than the alternative, which I can't see. So I'm just going to stay here, even though it sucks.
Again, comfort zone.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's comfortable, but you know how to do anxiety.
Yeah.
What you don't know how to do is confidence.
Yeah, and you do, it becomes a badge that you wear. I mean, I definitely, for a while, was like, and it's not a conscious thing. You don't consciously get up going, yes, I've got anxiety. But it becomes something that almost would fall out of my mouth. So, oh, I'm Lily. Oh, and I have anxiety.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I say I'm Lily, and I believe you can thrive in spite of it. Like, it's not even, there's a whole big debate going on as to whether you can get rid of anxiety completely, whether you should even try. And the people I've interviewed on this podcast all come from varying camps. And I know your thing, because I learned this from you, is that in certain situations your anxiety is needed. It's something that you absolutely need. And so you shouldn't be afraid of it. You shouldn't be on a mission to completely wipe it out, because otherwise faced with a tiger, you're going to try and reach out and stroke it. You're not going to know that that's not safe.
That's right. I mean, and that's my fundamental philosophy is anxiety is a good thing. Which again, a lot of people will go, yeah, we'll live in my life.
Yeah.
So, let's just quantify that a little bit more. If we didn't have anxiety, like you say, you would reach out and touch a tiger. You walk out in the middle of the road without looking right to see if the cars are coming.
Yeah.
Your anxiety is there to keep you safe. So if you didn't have any anxiety, you wouldn't be safe.
Right.
But it's all about calibration. So if 0 is living your life as a couch potato, never going out the house, and that's what you want, fine. Go with my love.
Yeah.
However, if 10 is so damn petrified that you never leave the house because everything's scary, that's not fine. So I choose to live my life probably on that calibration of around a 5 or 6. I am constantly pushing my boundaries because I love learning. I love pushing myself beyond what I can normally do because I think life is too flipping short. I am going to cram as much into my 130 years as I possibly can.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, because that's what makes me buzz. That's my personal choice. I don't expect everyone to be like that.
Yeah.
So I regularly am feeling anxious because I'm thinking, God, I'm walking into a room of people I don't know. Or like 18 months ago, I threw myself out of an airplane at 15,000 feet.
Yes, you did.
Yes,
Which you were hoping for 10, but someone suggested it should be higher. Who was that?
Revenge will be sweet.
I'm not going out of a plane, I tell you that for nothing.
But again, it was my choice to do that, and I was phenomenally anxious before I threw myself out the plane. But as soon as I did, I was literally on cloud 9. It was the most amazing feeling, and that almost has made me more of an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah,
I want to do that sort of thing even more. I mean, my next major mission is I want to climb Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
Because I know it's going to be incredibly tough. And even thinking about it already, I can feel my tummy goes, woo.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to do it because that's me growing. And I will love the fact when I get to the top and I will achieve something. So it's all about working on this calibration of 0 to 10. Where is good for you? You might want to be constantly at a 2. You might be like me that's constantly at a sort of 6. And that's okay. Where I need to know is if I go from a 6 to a 9, that's a problem.
Right.
So I was at a 9 before I threw myself out of that plane, but it was only temporary.
Yeah.
And it went back to a 6 very quickly.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's when you're living at those higher numbers that it's not good.
Right.
That's when you need to take some action and get some help.
Yeah, and I want to say, actually, you can probably still find the videos. Did you put them on YouTube or were they on Facebook?
Yeah, it's on my own YouTube channel.
Yeah, so Caroline actually declared she was going to throw herself out of a plane, then shit herself at the very idea, but realised that because she'd declared it to the world, it was happening. And then you actually went through your own book, didn't you? You actually did the process.
It's a really great example, actually, of even though you know this stuff, sometimes you need almost someone else to tell you.
Yeah.
And it was someone that called me out and said, oh, Caroline, you're always so confident. You have all these answers. You must never feel scared about anything. So what are you scared about? And without actually thinking, I went, well, I've been meaning to do a parachute jump for 20 years and I've never done it. And she just looked at me and went, I dare you. I was like, oh, okay, I've got to do it now. So I did put myself through anxiety alchemy. And what came to me is my fear was based around that feeling of when your tummy comes up into your mouth, when you're in like gravitational fall, like roller coasters again, when you're dropping, I hate that feeling with a passion. Yeah. So it wasn't anything about you might die, you might break a leg. It was like, I can't bear the thought of being in that free fall a minute, feeling my tummy wanting to come out through my mouth. Yeah.
I would say that's my fear. That would be how I would feel.
And that was my limiting belief. That was what's stopping me from jumping out an airplane. And so I went to talk to people who had jumped out an airplane. And in fact, it was a mutual friend of ours, Alan.
Yeah.
Said, you silly cow. Because when you're in somewhere like a roller coaster, you're sitting upright.
Right.
When you're free falling, you're actually horizontal.
Yeah.
Your body, your head and your feet are on the same plane. So your tummy hasn't got anywhere to go. You don't get that feeling. And
Right.
instantly, it was like an instant change, because the knowledge, my perception of how I would feel changed, because I got
Right.
knowledge in there. And he went, you don't feel that feeling at all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
Then I'll do it.
That on, it was easy. Yeah, I had a natural anxiety because my brain was going, no, 15,000 feet. Nah. If the parachute doesn't open. But again, evidence. What's the evidence there? I sat and watched probably 50 people jump out or land, going, yay!
Yeah.
So what's the evidence? Is my parachute going to not open? Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
So you look for that knowledge, you look for the evidence. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Therefore, I can do it.
Yeah. And that's one of my favourite quotes of yours. I wrote it down earlier, and I'm glad you said it. That if one person has done it, then you can too.
Yeah.
And that's you said that ages ago, and I've never forgotten it. And every time it was that quote that got this podcast launched, because I immediately, when I thought I'll do a podcast, I immediately was thinking, but I don't know how to do a podcast, and I don't know what it entails, and might not even be successful, and would anyone want to listen, and blah blah blah. And then it was like, well, but other people are doing it, so you can too. And it's not a good, fear isn't a good enough reason not to try. I want to just ask one more question before I ask you the big question that everyone gets. And that is, how does somebody cope? So let's say they've listened to this episode and perhaps they've heard some of these ideas before. Certainly if they've been on the podcast, they'll have heard some of this stuff before. So they're now awake to the idea that they get to create their reality, and that their limiting beliefs needn't define their actions, and that they get to choose something different. And maybe they're now ready to start taking these micro steps towards that change. But how would you advise somebody to cope with the day-to-day stressors and what they might term as reality? So, for example, somebody who has a lot of difficulty around money, for example. So someone who's in a very stressful situation with money, they now realise that that's something they can change, that's something they can work on, and they get up in the morning and they're all fired up to do it, and then bam, they look at their post and there's yet another bill they haven't paid, or somebody's banging on their door. How does somebody cope with the day-to-day reality in inverted commas? I was going to say doofers, but then I realised nobody knows what doofers are. How do you cope with that reality, which we know isn't really reality, and yet it is something that they would have to deal with? What would your advice be in that situation? How can somebody still take those micro steps to move themselves out of that situation?
Yeah, I think it's like that analogy of how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is in bite-sized chunks.
Right.
So if you're saying, my life is shit, then okay, what's one thing that you can change that will make it a little bit better?
Yeah.
Because taking on life is too much.
Yes.
So you just find that one thing. So taking your debt example, look at all of your debts, look at all your money problems, and what's the one debt that you may be able to focus on that when you clear that, you will feel better. So ignore all the others, or keep doing the minimum payments and all of those, and pay off the one that is causing you the most emotional stress.
Right. Yeah.
So if you speak to most financial people, they'll all start going down, look at the one that's got the highest APR, pay that off, because that will help your finances. My advice would be to take a very different approach, is look at all of your bills and which one is draining you emotionally the most.
Energetic APR as opposed to
about energy. Yeah.
Because
whilst your energy is going out, there's nothing. So I use this metaphor quite a lot of glass half empty, glass half full. So most people relate to that in terms of positivity.
Yeah.
In terms of energy. When your glass is full to the brim, it means that other people can take a sip out of it as well, and you're still in a good state.
Yeah.
When your glass is empty, not only are you going to start crumbling, so again, the body is going to start failing because you're totally dehydrated. You can't help anyone else either.
Yeah.
So it's all about energy. It's getting energy back in your glass. So pay off the one debt that is sapping the most energy out of your glass.
Yeah.
And when that debt's out of the way, you're going to have a little bit more energy to tackle the next one. And then you tackle the next one. And every little success is moving you forward. And it's teaching you something as well. You're learning.
And you're proving that you can as well. You've proved that you can. And I want to add to that as well, because I've been in that situation and I've had that advice from you. And that is to look at your perception of the situation as well, because a lot of the times that I was telling myself that I wasn't doing a good job and that I was failing, I actually wasn't failing in a lot of ways. It was just that I was too focused on the end goal. And I forgot that I get to go on a journey. I forgot that it's okay to be in the process of overcoming this issue or changing it around. And as soon as I realized that that was actually a thing, and that there actually is no end goal, because even if you get to the so-say end goal, you're probably going to have another one sat right behind it. As soon as I realized that, then I started to perceive that actually I hadn't been failing as spectacularly as I thought I had. It was just that all of my focus was on the thing I couldn't do. And I was completely ignoring all of the things I was doing really well.
There's a technique that I teach to people in a lot of different situations, but it fits perfectly here as well. And I think will also help a lot of people in different ways. I call it compartmentalization. Which don't try and say when you've got a mouthful of toffee. And the easiest metaphor is if you imagine a train that's got a series of carriages, like an old-fashioned train, like some of the stuff that you see in the old American movies where you have to jump from one carriage to another. Those carriages represent the parts of your life. So for most people, there'll be the marriage carriage. There'll be the friends carriage, there'll be the parent carriage, there'll be the work carriage, there'll be the health carriage. They're the kind of 5 main ones, but there may be lots of others as well. You might have a really long train. And for many people, it's almost like the doors to all their carriages are wide open. So if something goes wrong in the health train, it screws up all of the other carriages as well. That doesn't have to be the case. And a great example of this is someone might get redundant. So that's their work carriage, has got a fire in it. They close the doors on that work carriage. Don't allow the fire to rampage through all of the others. So it's helping that person understand, okay, there's a crisis going on in that carriage. You have lost your job. That is a problem, but we will help put the fire out. But recognize that you still have a really strong marriage. Recognize your children still love you. Recognize you've still got your health. Recognize you've still got a fantastic group of friends. You've got 4 really strong carriages. There's just a fire in one. So deal with that fire, but don't stay in that carriage 24 hours a day, because you're neglecting the other 4. Go into the other 4. And that's a really important thing. So for most people, their anxiety is living in some of their carriages, but not all of them. But make sure when you come out of that carriage, if you're having, problems at work, if you've got a boss that's undermining you, when you leave work, close the doors to that carriage, so that when you get home and your mum, your husband, your father, your daughter, whatever it may be that person who is confident in their role. And again, we could go on for this for ages, but a really great thing that can really help this compartmentalization is change your clothes. So when you come home from work, if you wear a uniform, great. So my husband's in the army. One of the first things he does as soon as he comes home is he goes upstairs, he gets out of his uniform and he puts on his tracky bottoms. And when he comes back down the stairs, he's dad, his husband. He's no longer an army officer. He's he even walks a bit differently because he's changed out of that carriage. He's moved out of that carriage. He's in a different role. But even if you wear the same clothes all day, segment your wardrobe off. Have things that you wear at work, things that you play in. So mentally and subconsciously, it has a profound impact. When you come in from work, if you've had a shit day, if you're anxious about something, if you're worrying about a presentation the next day, if you mentally change your clothes, that are telling your subconscious is, I'm now in a different carriage. And you can leave those problems. And when you put those clothes back on, or you take the work clothes out of that section, again, you're getting back into that role and go, okay, I'm going to back in that carriage to fight the fire.
With renewed energy, because you had an actual break from it.
You had a break from it.
It's awesome advice. It's so awesome. Oh my God, I reckon this could have gone for hours and hours and hours.
I think it already has, isn't it?
We should do like a 48-hour podcast marathon for children in need or something.
Dial in. People can phone in and ask their own questions.
Oh, that would be amazing. Do you know what? We could do that in the Confidence Academy on a live stream, because you can split the screen. So we could actually make that happen.
Let's do it.
Send me some love if you're listening and you want us to do a dial-in in the Confidence Academy podcast Facebook group, and then get yourself into said Facebook group so that you can be there for when it happens. So I'm going to finish with the final question, Caroline. If you had a megaphone and the ability to reach every anxiety sufferer in the world right now, what would you want those people to know?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one, because to pick just one thing. And I think the fundamental thing that I would say to someone is recognize that anxiety and excitement are absolute next door neighbors with just a very thin fence in between.
Yeah.
So your feeling of anxiety very, very quickly, by just taking on a slightly different perspective, and that perspective is going through a limiting belief. It may be just looking at things from a different angle. It may be getting a new piece of information, like my parachute jump example.
Yeah.
Will allow you to just jump over the fence and actually stop feeling anxious and feel excitement. And actually, a lot of people, when they talk to me about anxiety, I'm sitting there thinking, they're not anxious, they're actually excited, they're just mislabeling it.
Right, yeah.
But be aware that anxiety and excitement are easily interchangeable.
Yeah, so true, so true. And if you think about it, think about the feelings you get when you're excited versus the feelings you get when you're anxious. The feelings are the same. It's literally your perception of the situation that's different, isn't it?
And that takes us right back to why I have this philosophy of anxiety is a good thing. Because what would be life if it wasn't exciting?
Right, yeah. I've loved this. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been so fun. Yeah, and actually, I'm getting really excited. Let's do something live. Let's get people, because it's fine. And I can imagine a lot of people listening to this are going, yeah, but that doesn't relate to my situation. So let's talk. What is your situation? What can we do to help you?
Yeah. Do you know what? We're going to put this in the diary, you guys. So if you're listening, I need to think about this. So this is Monday the 11th that we're recording this. Let's get this episode out today so that it's in real time. And let's schedule the live call for next week, perhaps. Do you think we could find some time for that? Caroline's giving me a funny smile. We will bump our diaries, but I'm going to put this episode out today so that you guys are listening to this in real time.
Well, how about we do it? Because I do the Thrive Thursday post. So can we do it on a Thursday? And
let's do it on a Thursday. Yeah. We'll nail down a time. We'll nail down a date. But to everybody listening, that will be a live Q&A for you to have with Caroline and myself around everything we talked about today and anything else you want to bring up, like literally. So we'll do a live Q&A. Also, Caroline will be invited as a guest expert into the Confidence Academy members club. So that will be an opportunity to actually go through some of these techniques that we talked about, to go a lot deeper into some of these concepts that we spoke about. So if you want to be there for that masterclass when that happens, make sure that you get into the Academy beforehand as well. As a reminder, this week in the Academy, we've got Georgina Knoll coming in to do some EFT for us, which is going to be phenomenal. And it's the first guest expert masterclass happening. So if you're not already in the Academy and you want to be, click the link in the show notes, get yourself in there, get signed up, and I will see you in there. Maybe Thursday should be the masterclass day, because it just seems to be a good day anyway.
Yeah.
And to Caroline, if anybody wants to reach out and perhaps work with you or get a copy of your book or anything like that, or even just sign up, because I know you do regular newsletters and blogs, how would they do that?
Okay, so Anxiety Alchemy is available on Amazon, so both in the UK and the US, and it's available in paperback and also Kindle version as well. There is also the anxietyalchemy.co.uk website, which gives you links to some of the other things that I do. So one of my passions is working with teenagers. So I do a resource pack, for example, for anxious teenagers to help them deal with exam stress.
Amazing.
And in terms of Facebook, again, with teenagers, there's Teen Stress 101, which is a closed Facebook group. So that is specifically for parents of teenagers or preteens, 10, 11, 12 is all very well. And we just talk about, again, issues that are stressing out teenagers at the moment. Because one of my passions, if we can get to teenagers that age group, we can make them confident adults. Don't wait for the anxious adults.
Yes.
And teenagers just absorb this stuff brilliantly. So that's a closed Facebook forum. And my general sort of hypnotherapy is adding zest, and that's addingzest.com. And so that's where you can sign up for the newsletter as well, if you want to get that. And the newsletter is called Mind Matters, and it's just me talking about life. And as I say, I am constantly pushing boundaries. It's just me talking about how I deal with issues when they come up. So anyone that's been having Mind Matters, they know that recently I lost my mum. And it was quite a difficult time. And I shared through that newsletter what I was going through. Not because I wanted to say, oh, how wonderful am I? Because I know that, and because I was getting emails from lots of other people saying, we're there too, we're feeling that. And just know that we're not on our own. It's really helping us. There's, one of my last sort of philosophies is there isn't a right and wrong answer. There are 100 different ways that you can do things. It's finding the one that works for you. And if what you're doing now isn't working, you need to find something different. So what I aim to do is just keep sharing lots of ideas. It's not about you have to do this. It's about try this. Well, that didn't work. Have a go at this. That didn't work. What about this? It's about finding all of the tools. So I just share all of the tools that I know. And as I say, last count, there was way over 30 of them.
Yeah.
There will be one that works for you. Ideally, you pick up 5 or 6 of them and you use those at different times, whatever you're based on, whatever your challenge is at that time.
Yeah, and just know that the shift is possible for you. And I've said this before, but if you're listening to this podcast, then on a level you know that, because you've tuned into something that's to help. And if you didn't believe help was possible, then you wouldn't have tuned in to begin with. So thank you so much for being here, Caroline. I know it was a long one, but it was, oh my God, so brilliant, so informative. And I just know that that's going to have helped so many people. If you've been listening and you've loved this episode, don't forget to leave us a review. Also, get into the Facebook group and tag Caroline to tell her how wonderful she is, because I like to tell her, but I think she's starting to think that it's just something I like to say. So it would be lovely to hear from the rest of you as well. And if this episode has helped you in some way, if you've taken action as a result of it, then I want to know. Let me know. Let Caroline know, because it's like I've said before, we're all here to learn and to teach. It's like, there's collective healing and helping each other, and so we do what we do to help other people, but to heal ourselves as well. And so when we hear from other people and we hear that something we said was helpful, or that some advice was taken and it made a difference, that is so wonderful to hear. And so we would really like to hear from you if that is the case. And all of the links we've mentioned are going to be in the show notes, so go ahead and click through. But in the meantime, thank you again to Caroline for being here. Do check out. Yeah, it's been amazing. Do check out her websites, her book, and all of the links that we mentioned. And remember, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it. I'll be back very soon with another episode. I'm sending you loads and loads of love. We will see you on the live Q&A whenever that's going to be. Get in the Facebook group. We'll announce it probably later today. We'll get it nailed down. Thank you for listening, and goodbye. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
And that's us done for another episode. I hope you are now feeling uplifted, inspired and motivated, and ready to start making those positive changes starting today. If you love this episode and would like to connect with me or any of my amazing guests, then get on over to the Facebook group and join the conversation there. And for additional support and accountability, why not become a member of the Confidence Academy Members Club? You will find all of the relevant links in the show notes beneath this episode. Plus, I am so excited to announce that the Singing Club is back. This is my amazing 8-week program for people who have always wanted to learn how to sing. Singing has been and continues to be one of the main ways in which I keep my own anxiety at bay. I believe almost anyone can learn to sing, and if it's something you've always wanted to do, then you just have to be part of this next round. The program will run live via a private Facebook group where you can get feedback and support from me and the other group members. And the best part is, when you pay for this program, you are a member for life. That means that every time I run the course, you can come through it again and again as many times as you like, regardless of how many updates and price changes there may have been. Head on over to lilybadcock.com for the full details. In the meantime, I'll be back again soon with another new episode and more amazing guest experts. But until then, look after yourself, dream big and live bigger. And remember, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it.